I was standing in my kitchen, holding a letter that would change my life forever. The words blurred as I read them again and again. 72 hours. That is all they gave me to sell my home or face legal action. The home I had lived in for 8 years. The home where I raised my children. The home that was supposed to be my sanctuary. Karen Martinez, the new HOA president, stood on my front porch with a smug smile. She had just handed me what she called a final notice. But this was not about lawn height or mailbox colors. This was about power. This was about greed. And this was about to become the biggest mistake of her life. As I watched her walk away, adjusting her perfectly pressed blazer, I made a decision that would turn her world upside down. Because what Karen did not know was that I had just discovered something that would make her pay me triple rent for the rest of her life. And this is how it all began. For 8 years, I lived the American dream in Willowbrook Estates. My two-story colonial home sat on a quiet street lined with maple trees. Every morning, I would sit on my front porch with coffee, watching neighbors walk their dogs and kids ride bikes. Life was simple. Life was peaceful. Life was perfect. Then Karen Martinez moved in. She bought the house 3 doors down in March. By April, she had somehow gotten herself elected as the new HOA president. By May, everything changed. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning. I found a yellow envelope taped to my front door. Inside was a violation notice about my garden gnomes being inappropriate lawn decorations. I laughed it off. Garden gnomes, really, but the letters kept coming. My fence was 2 inches too high. My mailbox was the wrong shade of black. My rose bushes were planted 6 inches too close to the property line. Each violation came with a fine. $25, $50, $100. I called Karen to discuss the violations. Her voice was cold and professional. "Mrs. Thompson, the rules are the rules. If you cannot follow them, perhaps this neighborhood is not right for you." The comments stung, but I paid the fines. I moved the rose bushes. I repainted the mailbox. I even removed my beloved garden gnomes. But it was not enough. Nothing was ever enough. 3 weeks later, I received the letter that changed everything. The envelope was thick and official-looking. Inside was a document titled Notice of Mandatory Property Sale. My hands trembled as I read the words. Due to repeated violations of HOA covenants and your inability to maintain community standards, you are hereby required to list your property for sale within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in legal action and forced sale of your property. I read it again, then again. This could not be real. This could not be legal. Nobody could force me to sell my home because of garden gnomes and fence heights. But there it was, typed on official letterhead, signed by Karen Martinez and witnessed by 2 other board members. My heart pounded as I called my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She had lived in the neighborhood for 15 years. Her voice was shaking when she answered. "Oh, honey, I got the same letter. So did the Johnsons and the Millers. We are all supposed to sell within 72 hours. That night I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by HOA documents. I had never bothered to read them before. Why would I? I paid my dues, kept my property clean, and minded my own business. But now, with a lawyer's notice threatening to take my home, I read every single word. The bylaws were confusing and full of legal language. But as I dug deeper, something felt wrong. The procedures Karen was using did not match what was written in the official documents. The violation process was supposed to include hearings and appeals. There were supposed to be warnings and grace periods. None of that had happened. I made a decision that night. I was not going to run. I was not going to sell. I was going to fight back, and I was going to make Karen Martinez regret the day she decided to mess with the wrong homeowner. I became a detective overnight. My dining room table transformed into a command center covered with legal documents, printed emails, and sticky notes. I spent hours researching property law, HOA regulations, and tenant rights. My computer screen glowed late into the night as I dove deeper into the rabbit hole of bureaucratic corruption. The first breakthrough came on Thursday morning. I discovered that Karen's violation notices had skipped 3 mandatory steps. According to state law, HOA boards must provide written warnings, allow response periods, and hold hearings before issuing fines. Karen had done none of this. She had jumped straight to maximum penalties. But that was just the beginning. I started calling neighbors who had received similar letters. Mrs. Chen invited me over for coffee. She spread her own pile of violation notices across her kitchen table. Her hands shook as she pointed to each one. Look at this. My fence is supposedly 6 inches too high. I measured it myself. It is exactly the height it was when I built it 12 years ago. The HOA approved it back then. The Johnsons had been cited for excessive outdoor decorations. Their crime: a small American flag hanging from their porch. The Millers were facing fines for unauthorized landscaping because they had planted tulips in their front yard. Each story was more ridiculous than the last, but the pattern was clear. Karen was targeting specific homes with expensive properties and forcing them to sell. I made an appointment with Robert Chen, a property lawyer downtown. His office was small but impressive, with law books lining every wall. He listened carefully as I explained the situation, occasionally raising his eyebrows or making notes. "This is highly irregular," he said, flipping through Karen's letters. "These violation notices are invalid, the procedures are completely wrong, and this forced sale demand. This is not legal." He leaned back in his chair and studied me carefully. "Mrs. Thompson, I think you are dealing with more than just an overzealous HOA president. This looks like a coordinated effort to seize properties illegally." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "I want you to research something for me. Look into recent property sales in your neighborhood. Look for patterns. Look for connections to development companies or real estate investors." That night I dove into public records. What I found made my blood run cold. In the past 6 months, 4 families had sold their homes after receiving similar violation notices. All 4 properties had been purchased by the same company, Sunrise Development Group. I researched Sunrise Development. The company was owned by Michael Martinez, Karen's husband. Everything clicked into place. Karen was not just a power-hungry HOA president. She was running a con. She was terrorizing homeowners with fake violations, forcing them to sell at below-market prices, then having her husband's company buy the properties cheap. I printed every document I could find: property records, business licenses, HOA board meeting minutes, bank records showing payments from Sunrise Development to various board members. The more I dug, the worse it got. Karen had been planning this for months. She had stacked the HOA board with people who would do whatever she wanted. She had changed the bylaws without proper voting procedures. She had created fake violation categories that did not exist in the original HOA agreement. But the most shocking discovery came at 2 a.m. on Friday night. I was scrolling through county records when I found something that made me sit up straight in my chair. The HOA incorporation papers from 2 years ago contained forged signatures. I recognized the handwriting, because one of the signatures was supposed to be from Mr. Peterson, my former neighbor who had moved to Florida. I had Mr. Peterson's real signature on a Christmas card he had sent me. The signatures did not match. Corinne had built her entire scheme on fraudulent documents. Every fine, every violation, every threat was based on an HOA that was not legally valid. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Corinne thought she was so clever. She thought she had all the power, but she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because now I had everything I needed to destroy her. Monday morning, I walked into Robert Chen's office with a file folder thick enough to choke a horse. His secretary looked surprised when I asked for an emergency meeting, but Robert agreed to see me immediately. "Mrs. Thompson, you look like you have not slept in days." "I have not, but I have something you need to see." I spread the documents across his desk like a poker player revealing a royal flush. Property records, financial documents, forged signatures, bank transfers, everything. Robert's eyes widened as he studied each piece of evidence. He picked up the forged HOA incorporation papers and examined them under his desk lamp. "My God, this is criminal fraud. This entire HOA is invalid. Every action they have taken for the past 2 years has been illegal." "What does that mean for us?" "It means we have them. It means they owe massive damages to every homeowner they have harassed. And it means Corinne Martinez is going to face criminal charges." We spent the next 3 hours planning our attack. Robert would file a formal complaint with the state attorney general. I would organize the affected neighbors. Together, we would expose Corinne's scheme to the media and the court system. My first stop was Mrs. Chen's house. She answered the door in her bathrobe, looking exhausted. "I have news," I said. "Corinne's HOA is fake. The whole thing is fraud." Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with tears. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. We are going to fight back, all of us, together." Within hours, word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. By evening, 12 families had gathered in my living room. The Johnsons brought coffee. The Millers brought cookies. Everyone brought their violation notices and their anger. "What Corinne has done is illegal," I explained to the group. "She has terrorized us with fake authority. She has stolen money from us with invalid fines. And she has tried to steal our homes with fraudulent documents." Mr. Johnson, a retired veteran, stood up. His face was red with fury. "I fought for this country. I earned the right to live in my home without some con artist trying to steal it from me." The room erupted in agreement. One by one, each neighbor shared their story: the fake violations, the threatening letters, the fear and stress of potentially losing their homes. "So what do we do?" asked Mrs. Miller. "We fight. We file complaints. We go to the media. We make sure everyone knows what Corinne Martinez has done to our community." The next morning, I called Channel 7 News. The reporter, Jessica Martinez, was immediately interested in the story. "You are telling me that an HOA president has been using fake legal documents to force people to sell their homes?" "That is exactly what I am telling you, and I have the evidence to prove it." The news segment aired that Wednesday evening. The story was explosive. HOA fraud exposed. Local woman discovers massive property scam. The video showed Corinne's house, our neighborhood, and interviews with affected families. By Thursday morning, the story had gone viral on social media. My phone rang constantly with calls from other news stations, reporters, and homeowners in similar situations. But the best call came from the state attorney general's office. "Mrs. Thompson, we have reviewed your complaint and the evidence you submitted. We are opening a criminal investigation into Karen Martinez and her associates. That afternoon, I watched from my front window as two police cars pulled up to Karen's house. Officers in suits knocked on her door. Karen answered, still in her bathrobe, looking confused and scared. They handed her a search warrant and walked into her house. I felt a surge of satisfaction as I watched Karen's world begin to crumble. She had thought she was untouchable. She had thought she could terrorize innocent families and steal their homes without consequences. She was wrong. The war was just beginning. Karen still had tricks up her sleeve, and she was about to get desperate, but I was ready for whatever came next. Because I had learned something important over the past few weeks. When you are fighting for your home, for your family, for your right to live in peace, you do not give up. You do not back down. You fight with everything you have. And I was just getting started. Karen's response to the criminal investigation was swift and desperate. On Friday morning, I found a new letter taped to my front door. This one was different. The legal language was more aggressive. The threats were more specific. Immediate legal action required. Failure to comply with property sale demand will result in foreclosure proceedings within 24 hours. 24 hours. She had reduced her timeline from 72 hours to 1 day. The woman was panicking, and panic makes people dangerous. I called Robert Chen immediately. "She cannot do this," he said. "This is harassment. This is intimidation. We need to document everything." But Karen was not done. That afternoon, she called an emergency HOA board meeting. The notice was posted on the community bulletin board with only 4 hours advance warning. According to the bylaws, residents were supposed to receive 48 hours notice for any board meeting. I showed up anyway. The meeting was held in the community center. Karen sat at the head of a folding table, flanked by 3 board members who looked increasingly uncomfortable. About 20 residents filled the folding chairs facing them. Karen's face was flushed, her hair disheveled. The confident, perfectly pressed woman I had met months ago was gone. In her place was someone who looked cornered and desperate. "This meeting is about the ongoing disruption to our community," Karen began. "Certain residents have been spreading lies and filing false complaints against the HOA board." Mrs. Johnson stood up. "The only lies here are the ones you have been telling us for months." "Sit down," Karen snapped. "You are out of order." "No, you are out of order," Mr. Johnson replied. "You are the one who has been breaking the law." The room erupted in angry voices. Residents demanded answers. Board members shifted nervously in their seats. Karen pounded a gavel on the table. "I am dissolving this meeting. Everyone needs to leave immediately." But nobody moved. The anger in the room was palpable. These were people who had been terrorized for months, and they were not going to be silenced anymore. That was when Karen made her biggest mistake. Anyone who does not leave will be subject to immediate legal action. Your properties will be seized for violation of community standards. The room went silent. Even her own board members stared at her in shock. "Karen," said board member Patricia Wells, "you cannot seize people's properties. That is not how this works." "I can do whatever I want," Karen replied. "I am the president of this HOA." Patricia stood up and walked out. Within minutes, the other 2 board members followed. Karen was left sitting alone at the head of the table, facing 20 angry residents. "This meeting is over," she announced to the empty chairs beside her. But the real drama was just beginning. Over the weekend, I received calls from all 3 former board members. They wanted to meet with me privately. We gathered at Patricia's house on Sunday afternoon. "We need to tell you something," Patricia said. "Karen has been forging our signatures on documents. We never approved half the violations she sent out." "What do you mean?" I asked. "The forced sale letters, the emergency fines, the policy changes. We never voted on any of it. She has been making decisions on her own and using our names." Patricia pulled out a stack of documents. "These are copies of everything she asked us to sign over the past 6 months. But look at these other documents. These are things that went out with our names on them that we never saw." I examined the papers. Sure enough, there were dozens of violations and fines issued with forged board signatures. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because we are scared," admitted former board member Tom Richards. "Karen has been threatening us too. She said if we did not cooperate, she would find violations with our properties. She has been blackmailing the board members." "Yes, and when we found out about the criminal investigation, we realized we could be charged as accessories if we do not come forward." This was the smoking gun I needed. Board members admitting to forgery and blackmail. It was perfect. But Karen was not finished fighting. On Monday morning, I discovered that someone had thrown eggs at my house during the night. My car tires had been slashed. A dead fish was left on my front porch. The intimidation tactics were escalating. I called the police and filed a report. I installed security cameras. I documented everything. But deep down, I was starting to doubt myself. Was this fight worth it? Was I putting my family at risk? Karen was clearly unstable, and unstable people do unpredictable things. That evening, I sat in my living room staring at the forced sale letter. Maybe I should just sell. Maybe I should take whatever money I could get and start over somewhere else. But then I thought about Mrs. Chen, crying at her kitchen table. I thought about Mr. Johnson, a veteran who had fought for his country and earned the right to live in peace. I thought about all the families Karen had already driven away with her illegal scheme. If I gave up now, she would win. She would keep terrorizing innocent people. She would keep stealing homes and destroying lives. I picked up my phone and called Robert Chen. "I have more evidence," I said, "and I am ready to end this once and for all." Tuesday morning brought the breakthrough that changed everything. I was sitting at my kitchen table, reviewing documents with Robert Chen, when he suddenly stopped mid-sentence. "Wait, look at this." He was holding the original HOA incorporation papers from 2023. His finger pointed to a small detail I had missed before. "The filing date. Look at the filing date." I examined the document. The HOA incorporation was filed on March 15, 2023. Karen had moved into the neighborhood in March 2024. What does that mean? It means Karen was not even a resident when this HOA was supposedly created. She could not have been involved in the original incorporation. Robert pulled out his laptop and started typing furiously. He was accessing the state corporate database. "I am checking the original filing documents. The real ones, not the copies Karen has been showing everyone." What he found made both of us go silent. "Mrs. Thompson, there is no record of Willowbrook Estates HOA being incorporated in 2023. There is no record of it being incorporated ever." My heart stopped. "What are you saying?" "I am saying there is no HOA. There never was an HOA. Karen created fake incorporation papers and has been pretending to run a homeowners association that does not exist." The room spun around me. For months, I had been fighting what I thought was a corrupt HOA, but there was no HOA at all. Corinne had been operating a complete fantasy. How is that possible? We have been paying HOA dues for 2 years. Those payments were going into a personal bank account controlled by Corinne and her husband. They have been stealing money from every homeowner in the neighborhood. Robert was already reaching for his phone. I am calling the district attorney. This is not just fraud anymore. This is organized crime. Within an hour, my living room was filled with law enforcement officers. Detective Sarah Morrison from the Fraud Division spread our evidence across my coffee table. This is one of the most elaborate property scams I have ever seen, she said. Corinne Martinez has been running a fake HOA for 2 years. She has collected thousands of dollars in fake dues. She has issued fake fines. She has terrorized homeowners with fake legal authority. What happens now? I asked. Now we arrest her, and we freeze all the bank accounts associated with this scheme. But Corinne was not going down without a fight. When police arrived at her house with arrest warrants, she was gone. Her neighbors reported seeing her load suitcases into her car at 5 a.m. The search of her house revealed the full scope of her operation. Corinne had created an elaborate fake organization complete with letterhead, official documents, and even a fake board of directors. She had been using legal templates downloaded from the internet to create threatening letters that looked official but had no legal authority. The most shocking discovery was in her home office. Corinne had detailed plans to expand her fake HOA scheme to other neighborhoods. She had been researching communities with expensive homes and absent-minded residents. Willowbrook Estates was just the beginning. Detective Morrison called me that evening with an update. We found Corinne. She was trying to board a flight to Mexico with $47,000 in cash. She has been arrested and charged with fraud, theft, forgery, and conspiracy. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Mrs. Thompson, I need to ask you something. Did you ever wonder why Corinne targeted your neighborhood specifically? I assumed it was because the houses were valuable. That was part of it, but there is more. Corinne's husband, Michael, works for a major development company. They have been planning to buy up properties in your area for a new shopping center. Corinne was trying to force people to sell cheap so her husband's company could acquire the land at below-market prices. The conspiracy was bigger than I had imagined. This was not just a neighborhood bully. This was corporate espionage designed to steal an entire community. What does this mean for us? I asked. It means every homeowner in Willowbrook Estates is entitled to damages. It means all the money Corinne stole has to be returned with interest. And it means you have grounds for a massive lawsuit against her, her husband, and the development company. I hung up the phone and looked around my living room, the same room where I had hosted angry neighbors just weeks ago, the same room where I had doubted myself and considered giving up. Now it was the room where I learned that my fight had not just saved my home. It had uncovered a criminal conspiracy that could have destroyed our entire community. Corinne Martinez thought she was so clever. She thought she could terrorize innocent families and steal their homes with fake legal documents. She thought nobody would have the courage to fight back. She was wrong. But this was not over. The legal battle was just beginning, and I was about to discover that sometimes when you fight corruption, you do not just win. You win bigger than you ever imagined possible. The courthouse was packed on the morning of Corinne's arraignment. Local news cameras filled the hallway. Reporters interviewed neighbors who had been victimized by her scheme. The story had become a symbol of grassroots justice against corporate greed. Corinne appeared in handcuffs, wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. Gone was the perfectly pressed blazer and confident smile. She looked small and defeated as she sat next to her court-appointed attorney. The judge read the charges: fraud, theft, forgery, conspiracy, racketeering. The list went on for 5 minutes. "How do you plead?" the judge asked. "Not guilty," Karen whispered. But the evidence was overwhelming. Phone records showed she had been coordinating with her husband's development company. Bank records revealed the fake HOA account where she had been depositing stolen dues. Security footage from a local print shop showed her creating fake legal documents. The prosecutor stood up to address the court. "Your Honor, the defendant has operated a sophisticated criminal enterprise for over 2 years. She has stolen money from dozens of families. She has terrorized homeowners with fake legal authority. She has attempted to defraud people of their most valuable possession, their homes." The judge set bail at $500,000. Karen's husband posted the money, but their assets were frozen pending the outcome of the criminal case. Meanwhile, Robert Chen was preparing our civil lawsuit. The target was not just Karen and her husband, but the development company that had been planning to profit from the scheme. "We are going to sue for triple damages," he explained to the group of affected homeowners gathered in my living room. "That means every dollar they stole gets paid back 3 times over." Mrs. Chen raised her hand. "What about the emotional distress, the sleepless nights, the fear of losing our homes?" "That is covered too. We are seeking damages for emotional distress, harassment, and conspiracy to commit fraud." The development company tried to settle out of court. They offered to pay back the stolen HOA dues plus a small penalty. Robert laughed when he received their proposal. "They want to pay $50,000 total. We are going to demand $2.5 million. The civil trial lasted 3 weeks. One by one, my neighbors testified about the harassment they had endured, the fake violations, the threatening letters, the fear of losing their homes. I was the final witness. I sat in the witness chair and told the jury about the 72-hour ultimatum letter, about the sleepless nights spent researching legal documents, about the moment I realized our entire HOA was fake. "Mrs. Thompson," asked Robert, "what impact did this scheme have on your life?" "It turned my safe, peaceful neighborhood into a war zone. It made me question everything I thought I knew about property rights and legal authority. It taught me that sometimes you have to fight for what is right, even when the odds seem impossible." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood up with the verdict. "In the case of Thompson versus Martinez, we find the defendants liable for fraud, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." My heart pounded as he continued. "We award damages in the amount of $2.7 million to be distributed among the affected homeowners." The courtroom erupted in cheers. Mrs. Chen was crying. Mr. Johnson was shaking his fist in victory. I sat in stunned silence as the number sank in. $2.7 million, divided among 48 affected homeowners. That was more than $50,000 per family. But the judge was not finished. Additionally, the court orders the defendants to pay ongoing rental damages to the plaintiffs. Since the defendants attempted to illegally seize the plaintiffs' properties, they will pay fair market rent for those properties until the full judgment is satisfied. Robert leaned over and whispered in my ear, "That means they have to pay you rent for your own house, about $2,500 per month, for as long as it takes to pay off the judgment." I did quick math in my head. At $2,500 per month, It would take Corinne and her co-conspirators decades to pay off the full judgment. They would be paying me rent for my own home for the rest of their lives. The irony was perfect. Corinne had tried to force me to sell my house. Now she was going to pay me to live in it. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded me with cameras and microphones. "Mrs. Thompson, how does it feel to win this case?" "It feels like justice. Not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been bullied by someone abusing fake authority." "What advice would you give to other homeowners facing similar situations?" "Fight back. Do your research. Do not let anyone intimidate you with fake legal documents. And remember that sometimes the people who seem most powerful are actually the most vulnerable." That evening, I sat on my front porch with a cup of coffee. The same porch where this whole nightmare had started. The same porch where Corinne had handed me the 72-hour ultimatum letter. My phone buzzed with a text message from my bank. The first rental payment had been deposited, $2,500, money that Corinne was now legally required to pay me every month. I smiled and took a sip of coffee. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Corinne would probably appeal the verdict. The criminal case was still pending. There would be more legal battles ahead. But tonight, I was going to enjoy the victory. Because sometimes, when you fight corruption, you do not just win. You win so completely that your enemies end up paying you for the privilege of having fought you. And that is the sweetest victory of all. 1 year later, I wake up every morning to the same beautiful view from my bedroom window. The maple trees lining our street are fuller now. The neighborhood is quieter, more peaceful. Children play in yards without fear of violation notices. Dogs run freely without worry about leash length regulations. The monthly rental payment arrives like clockwork. $2,500 on the first of every month. Corinne Martinez is paying me to live in my own home. The home she tried to steal from me with fake legal documents and manufactured authority. Corinne herself is gone. After her conviction on multiple felony charges, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Her husband lost his job with the development company. Their house went into foreclosure. They lost everything while trying to steal everything from us. The criminal trial was a masterclass in justice. Corinne's defense attorney tried to argue that she was just an overzealous homeowner who got carried away with community standards. The prosecutor demolished that argument with evidence of premeditation, conspiracy, and organized fraud. The fake HOA documents, the forged signatures, the coordinated plan with the development company, the multiple neighborhoods she had researched for future scams. This was not a mistake or an overreaction. This was a carefully planned criminal enterprise. The judge was not sympathetic. "Mrs. Martinez, you have terrorized dozens of families. You have stolen their money, threatened their homes, and violated their fundamental right to peaceful enjoyment of their property. You have abused the trust that communities place in their leaders." 5 years in prison, full restitution, permanent ban from serving on any HOA board. Corinne got everything she deserved. But my favorite part of the victory is not the money or the justice. It is the transformation of our neighborhood. Without a fake HOA terrorizing residents, people started taking care of their properties because they wanted to, not because they were afraid of fines. Mrs. Chen planted a beautiful rose garden. The Johnsons hung wind chimes on their porch. The Millers installed a small fountain in their front yard. All the things Corinne had tried to ban with her fake violations became symbols of our freedom. We did form a real homeowners association eventually, but this one was different. This one was democratic. This one was transparent. This one actually exists. I was elected as the first president, not because I wanted power, but because I had proven I would fight for what was right. Our first official act was to create a memorial garden for all the families who had been driven away by Corinne's scheme. The rental payments continue. By my calculations, Corinne and her co-conspirators still owe about $2.3 million in damages. At $2,500 per month, they will be paying me for another 77 years. I will be 132 years old when the final payment arrives. Of course, I do not expect to live that long, but my children will inherit the judgment. Their children will inherit it after them. For generations, my family will receive monthly payments as a reminder of what happens when you try to steal someone's home. I have become something of a local celebrity. Other communities facing HOA corruption have invited me to speak at their meetings. I have testified before the state legislature about the need for better oversight of homeowner associations. The story has inspired dozens of other homeowners to fight back against corrupt HOAs. I receive emails every week from people who have used our legal strategy to expose fraud in their own communities. But the most satisfying part of this whole experience is much simpler. Every morning, I sit on my front porch with my coffee. The same porch where Corinne Martinez handed me that 72-hour ultimatum letter. The same porch where she told me I had to sell my home or face legal consequences. Now she is the one facing consequences. She is the one who lost everything. She is the one paying me to live in the home she tried to steal. The lesson is simple. Never mess with someone who has more time, more patience, and more determination than you do. Never assume that ordinary people will not fight back when you threaten their homes and their families. And never, ever try to run a scam based on fake legal documents, because eventually, someone will do their homework. Someone will ask the right questions. Someone will discover that your entire operation is built on lies. When that happens, you will not just lose. You will lose so completely that you will spend the rest of your life paying for your mistakes. Corinne Martinez learned that lesson the hard way. And every month, when that rental payment arrives in my bank account, I am reminded that sometimes justice is not just served. Sometimes justice is served with interest.